everyone. Thank you for being here on time and gracing this occasion. So we are all congregated here this morning to commemorate and celebrate this special occasion of the book launch on Pigment Technology by our dear friend Dr. Tipanna. He's here, enthusiastic as ever. I would first request him to please accompany all our dignitaries onto the dais, please.
Secretaries, when they come out of Delhi, they are different. Once they go back to their seat,
generally she's quite okay. She's quite okay. She's one of the people who is quite enthusiastic and a go-getter. So
they all want what I gave her a very elaborate
discussion.
Once again, a warm welcome to all our respected dignitaries on the dais and dignitaries and industry friends in the audience today. So a very quick prelude before the core aspect of today's function takes over. As the editor and publisher of Paintindia and Color Publications, we are thrilled to have this opportunity to be able to allow Dr. Tipanna to realize his dream of publishing this wonderful book on pigment technology. This book is a culmination of his efforts of the last 2 to 3 years, and more importantly, the culmination of his experience or the translation of his experience of over 30 years in this industry. So just this morning we were talking to a few of our industry friends gathered here, and we said that amongst a random group of 100 people, you have barely 5 people who actually have this pedigree and the knowledge to actually be able to write a book of this intensity and this value. And amongst those 5 people, you have with great difficulty just one who actually has the motivation and the aptitude to actually go ahead and translate this knowledge into a book of this quality. So Dr. Tipanna, I think you can be extremely proud of yourself, and everyone I'm sure is waiting to gleefully get their hands on your book and read it. So and how appropriate it is that we're having this launch function today at this Temple of Learning for our chemical industry, ICT. I still struggle to refer to it in its new name. The muscle memory and the old emotions take me back to UDCT. Yeah. So personally for us, it was at UDCT that the germination of the idea of color publications and Paintindia actually happened when our late founder Shri Raghavan interacted with the stalwarts like Professor K. Venkatraman, Professor Navar, Professor Tilak, and it was their motivation, their impetus, and even their guidance that actually allowed Shri Raghavan to give birth to all of these publications, which incidentally have chemistry and coloration as the common elements in their identity. So again, if you try to allow a convergence of the context of today's function, where the book is about pigment technology, pigments, of course, we know that India is now one of the shining lights in the color industry, whether it's pigments or dyestuffs. And all of these are, pigments find diverse applications going into downstream industries like paints, textiles, cosmetic, plastics, all of which happen to be the core area of our operation. So, Dr. Tipanna, once again, thank you for giving us this opportunity. And since we have interacted at close quarters in the recent past, it's not only been a wonderful outcome, as all of you will see shortly, it's been a wonderful journey, and his passion and enthusiasm for the subject is really quite exemplary. He has all the industry stalwarts here, he has all the stalwarts from the academia here, from his own alma mater, his his Gurujis, all of our Gurujis. So I think it's an absolute wonderful setting today, and it really is a wonderful occasion. So we look forward to the next 1 hour or so, finally culminating in the launch of this book. So with that little prelude, I would like to set the formal proceedings for today in motion. And if I may please invite Dr. Pandit to please step up and deliver a short address, please.
Thank you, Vijay. Good morning, Professor Sharma, Narubai, Anjani Prasad, Professor Kale, Janak, and the author, Dr. Tipanna, my good friend as well, and all of you sitting here in ICT. Now, whenever I attend this function or this type of functions, I mean, there have been many book launches, and every time I remember Professor Sharma's 4 commandments meant for any academic: teaching, research, industrial interaction, and finally scholarly writing. Now, anyone who follows these 4, something like this results into. So I am very happy that we have gathered here on this particular occasion. And if you had known Dr. Tipanna, had seen Dr. Tipanna 3 years ago before he started writing the book, and you see him now and see how loose his attire has become, the loss of weight which he has can be explained on the basis of the quality of this book. So I'm sure you will enjoy that. I had a glance at this book, Tipanna showed it to me, and it is really who's who or what is what of the pigment industry. And I'm indeed extremely happy that he has chosen his alma mater to inaugurate and launch this book, and I welcome you all for this wonderful occasion and to wish Tipanna to have a great future and continue the scholarly writing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pandit. Erudite and brief as ever, but completely to the point. Thank you so much. If I may now invite Shri Parekh to please come and address the gathering.
Good morning all. So I am representing the UDCT Alumni Association. Actually, Dr. Mahendale was to address you all, but he had to go to Goa for his professional work. So I am just pitching in. Great to see a packed auditorium. We have been missing the events for UA over last couple of years, but good to see you all here. I'll just briefly speak about the UA and my association with Tipanna, mainly from the UA. He is visiting faculty in the polymers department as well, but our close interactions was mainly through UA when he joined as a board member, and it was just fascinating to interact with him as usual, ever cheerful. All of you will quickly agree with that, and it's definitely a huge task to write a book, as Professor Pandit also has said. So many congratulations, Dr. Tipanna. UA, as you know, most of you would be knowing about the UDCT Alumni Association, and by the way, we have still maintained the UDCT name in that. There were some thought processes in terms of changing it to ICT Alumni Association, but so far so good. We are still UDCT Alumni Association. So it's helping ICT to grow, helping the students, helping the infrastructure development, the support staff. So a lot of programs are ongoing, and we can discuss it later, or you can connect me on email. The 2 main programs which I wanted to highlight, one is we are now undertaking a project to upgrade the classrooms after successfully completing lab upgradation, especially for undergraduate lab, because the research lab do get funding based on the projects of individual faculty. Undergraduate labs are kind of common labs, so there we spend about 1 CR on kind of upgrading different undergraduate labs, providing them equipment, and after that now we are going to do something on the classroom upgradation, right? So you all know may visit the classrooms and you will feel that there needs some renovation there. And second is we are continuing our efforts in terms of supporting the needy students. because especially on COVID, and we have been interviewing a lot of students, there are a lot of problems which students are facing. So that project is undergoing. Two main dates which I wanted to announce and welcome you all. We will have our AGM on 20th of August, and we'll also have the annual reunion, which is typically third Saturday of December. So please note, and we will definitely have it offline. For the AGM, the alumni must have received the notice, and for the annual event, it's free for all. So you can all join in as a well-wisher, as alumnus definitely, and looking forward to see you. Okay, so thanks very much and many congratulations, Dr. Tipanna, once again.
Thank you, Professor Gopte. Given that the book is about pigment technology, Dr. Tipanna and I in our wisdom thought that it would be most appropriate to have guests of honor who are leading lights from the pigment and colorant industry. And we are honored to have the presence of Shri Parekh from Piddilite, one of the leading pigment manufacturers, needs no introduction. Shri Anjani Prasad, Managing Director of Archroma, of course one of the leaders globally in dyestuffs, and Shri Janak Mehta, who is the President of the Dye Stuff Manufacturers Association of India. We would like to now cordially invite Shri Anjani Prasad to please speak a few words and share his views on this.
So good morning to everyone. It's a real pleasure for me to stand here from the college which I got educated, and Professor Sharma, Dr. Pandit, Mr. Parekh, Janak Bhai and Tipanna. I know Tipanna quite closely because he's staying very close to me. When I saw him coming with the books, first question, as Dr. Pandit said, I asked him, what about your weight? I mean, you should write something on the weight also as another book. And so this, when I went through this book, which you showed me, has enormous, informations on the pigments. When I saw that, and the industry which I belong to, I could correlate a lot of things which was important. In the textile industry, I see that a lot of things are happening around pigment printing, a lot of things also now going for pigment dyeing, and this is more sustainable in a way that you don't use energy and water so much as compared to the other dyeing concepts. Going forward, I mean, inkjet printing is going to be another area where there's a lot of development happening in the inkjet printing to develop these pigments to be, compatible with the inkjet and all the flows which are there with the right binder system. So on the textile front, this is major. But one thing major which we should not forget is also on the 3D printing for the future. Where India, there's not too much of research around. I see more in Germany, I see more in China, and I see more in USA. And I feel a lot of pigments can be used in different polymers of the 3D printing. And that is what we need to also look at for the future. I saw a lot of information on the inorganic pigments, which is there. And that is also from the ancient time and what we are doing now. What I see, a lot of things which we can do in the area of the ceramic tiles, where the high temperature stable pigments can be used in a big way. It's already there in Morbi on the digital side in a very big way. The other areas of application which we know that is in the area of detergents, by coloration, also in the food part, and many other industries like the wood, the paper is also another area with lot of packaging and the single-use plastic coming, and this becomes also an important area for the usage of the pigments. And I feel this can be a nice basis to go through this and also link it to the industry and take it forward. And many of those products which are very high in fastness or light fastness or various other parameters which in application and functionality people need, this can really help to identify the right elements and to improve your range of offerings. So this is a great step Tipanna you have taken, and I wish you good luck and all the best for the future and a lot of learning for the students. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Prasad. I think very enlightening and some more food for thought, Tipanna. Already your fodder for edition 2, I think, is provided. So I already made a brief mention of the presence of Shri Parekh as one of our guests of honor. If I may please request Mr. Parekh to step up and speak a few words. Sir.
Dignitaries on dais, ladies and gentlemen, thank you Dr. Tipanna and Dilip of CP for inviting me for today's function. When Dr. Tipanna informed me that he is writing a book on pigment technology, so I was a little wondering that person having a PhD in polymer technology and writing book on pigment. Then I realized that he has a wide experience and knowledge of pigment that is more than polymers. First, I met him at his factory where he was manufacturing pulp pigment. You may be knowing that in India he was number 2 to manufacture pulp pigment because only Sudarshan is making now. But because of Chinese very low price, I think he could not run it for a long time. But his experience in Asian paint and then fluorescent pigment is vast. So he has understood the problem of the manufacturers, students and others to have a book which is very simple and which is very short. You see, on pigment there are books available written by foreign people, but they are maybe 3 volume. Our Dr. Shah has written a book on dyes and pigment which are also 3 volume. They are quite exhaustive, but we don't need all this detailed. Well, there is a more on technical side. I have gone through his book, and what is interesting is that individual commercial pigment, if you want to know about it, immediately from index you can see I want yellow one. Then yellow one you will know what is the raw material, what is the chemistry, what is the technology. So you don't have to go through other volume where they have given in a chapter like azopigments, quinacridone, phthalocyanine, and then you have to refer, and then in formula you will see R1, R2, etc. Here straight away to go to the pigment and you will get all information. So I congratulate Dr. Tipanna to understand the problem of the average people who wants to know not very much detailed chemistry, but fundamental. So he has touched other filler, he has touched, which is also very important for pigment and manufacturing of paint and other things. Then he has referred to marketing, international marketing, and given quite a good idea about what is the pigment market and what is the future, etc. So overall, I find book very helpful to all who are interested in pigment and manufacturing pigment. So I congratulate him again and wish him all the success, and books I think will be taken over by a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you, Shri Parekh. I think that was very, very well spotted. Dr. Tipanna has been able to blend his rich technical knowledge with his actual practical experience in the industry as well. And obviously, Mr. N.K. Parekh, being as astute as ever, did not miss that aspect of it. So, thank you once again, sir. So, we also have Dr. Tipanna's professor, mentor, Dr. D.D. Kale, and we could not allow this function to proceed without requesting him to share a few words. Professor Kale, please.
Thank you, Mr. Raghavan, for giving this opportunity. All the dignities on dais where my teacher, Professor Sharma, is sitting, and my colleagues like Professor Joshi, my colleague Priya Bhumkar, who is dealing with pigments. It's a nice thing for me to speak on this occasion. I think Mr. Parekh said that Mr. Tipanna, being a plastic technologist, how come he could think of getting into pigment technology? Pigments are being taught as one of the subjects in plastics because they are used in plastics. But selection of pigments or use of pigments is normally missing. And chemistry, yes, it is required. And I remember that Tipanna has an ability to go into the details of any new subject that comes to him. After his education in Judicity was over, that time I remember he was working on blends, which was sponsored by ICI. So it was a different game altogether, and his job was in pigments only, fluorescent pigments, right? And that was in Bangalore. And he was a little bit hesitant I said, don't be hesitant, accept this job, you will learn many things. Because your starting job is not necessarily connected with plastics per se. Pigments are used in plastics. And there is a huge market in India, huge opportunity in India, as Mr. Parekh said. Slowly people are coming into the new manufacturing of new pigments. And when we compare the international market, it's amazing. So I'm really glad that Tipanna took this challenge. Last 4 years or so he is working on this, and we discussed many things. And I'm really glad that he has taken it in a very nice way, and he has come to the conclusion of this particular book. Last week only we were discussing, there is a possibility that some extension of this work will be done where I may be associated with him, and I'm sure Raghavan will be looking for that. And that may not be as exhaustive as this one, but something may come up. Tipanna was writing all these articles in color publications, and I have gone through all his articles. I was discussing with him for giving some lectures also on some platforms, and then too many things were happening together, so I said you leave this apart and first concentrate on book. And I'm really glad that he has written a good book which is very useful for the technologists, scientists and the end users. Otherwise normally the books are meant either for your exams or for something else, but this book will serve all the purpose. And I'm really glad. I wish him great success and a further more success and success in his future life. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the reason why we are all here, the book launch. All the dignitaries are ready. Their individual copies are there in front of them. And I think this is the time, this is the cue for all of us to request our dignitaries to please formally unveil the book and allow us to launch it. So, if you could, please. Thank you everyone. So we've had a galaxy of industry and academic seniors speak and unveil the book, and of course the crowning glory on top of all of that would be the presence of our dear respected Professor M.M. Sharma. So obviously in our minds it was a no-brainer in terms of whom we should have in our as a desire in our minds as the chief guest. And as always, Professor Sharma is always very, very kind to accept invitations to grace such forums, and we are indeed privileged to have him as the chief guest for this function today. So, Professor Sharma, if you could please step up and share your wisdom with all of us, based on what you have read of this book as well. Sir.
Our author and hero of the day, Dr. Tipanna Mariyappa. She is blushing, it's very good. He has every reason to blush. Well, as I said, author, and you have list of manufacturers, then Vice Chancellor of the UDCT, you have a pioneer in violet pigment, Naru. In my class, we always called him Naru Mama. His nephew used to be my classmate. Then our Anjani, Didi Kale, Parag, nice to see all of you. This institution had a great start with this gentleman, in whose name this auditorium is named. It's Dr. Venkatraman, who really launched this whole idea of writing books. Mind you, this was a very difficult period in 50s. And I'll never forget having entered the UDCT hostel in 1954, when the talk was, this book is very expensive. And it was available at concessional rate of 110 rupees for UDCT schools. 110 rupees was a an academic press, and my God, number of volumes. And fortunately that tradition has continued. We had Shenoy writing books, Chandalia wrote book. So there is a tradition, and recently we had book launched by my classmate Suhas Mokashi. But this tradition is something we should all be very proud of. And this area of pigment is a classic example of knowledge engineering. I kept on telling when he called on me that I should write the foreword. I was wondering why he asked me to write that foreword. I was not ignorant of the area, as he soon discovered. It's a very nice example of knowledge engineering, and I'll explain to you why. And I'm never tired of giving example of iron oxide pigment. You start with a real cheap material which is available as a waste stream but converted into high value, that is iron sulfate, either from titanium dioxide manufacture or steel pickling. And this was converted into iron oxide pigment by as big a company as Bayer, now Lensex. And see the contrast from post office red at 7 or 8 or 10 rupees a kilo to the yellow, to the transparent, and to the micaceous, going all the way with the same starting material to 130 rupees a kilo. If this is not an example of knowledge engineering, what else would be the example of that? You start with something which is a waste, you have converted that into wealth, and you are talking of 8-fold rise in the price, whose basic composition is not different, but properties are radically different. Imagine having transparent, and automobile industry requires that. We continue to import in spite of plenty of ferrous sulfate being available, ferrous sulfate, pentahydrate, heptahydrate. It's really. The other example is that you take this advent of nano. That has changed the pigmentary properties radically. Remember, when DuPont was in the business of titanium dioxide and the technology changed from the acid leaching process for ilmenite to vapor phase titanium tetrachloride burning. Funny, you burn and make a pigment and recycle HCl. And there used to be a statement, just like polyethylene film, every year the film is thinner and stronger. Every year there was a claim of DuPont, duly verified, that lesser quantity of titanium dioxide will give you the same pigmentary value. Yet another example of, true example of knowledge engineering. Then I kept on taunting my friends in this industry that how come we continue to have lead and chromium pigments. Some persons making chromium and lead pigments are probably in the audience. Ravesh is there. Now, it was Ron Polak which first came out with pigments replacing them, and they were based on Syrian lanthanum. I was chairman of a committee on behalf of CSIR to launch this pigment. A lot of effort was. We have plenty of cerium oxide available in India, lanthanum also. It's a pity that there is only one company in the world which has pigment yellow and red replacing lead and chromium. And we have all the resources. As simple an item as precipitated calcium carbonate is now coming in nano, and there are plants of thousands of tons per annum of nano calcium carbonate. It's one of the cheapest pigments that you can think of. And the new technology is brought in its wake demands which are very different. Inkjet printing. Inkjet printing, you look at when you buy, just like when you buy for a printer, what sort of money you pay for the cartridge. And if it is colored cartridge, what else? Why it is that we are not able to make those whole range of pigments that go for inkjet printing? Because people like colors. Fortunately, he has all the colors on the cover itself. Of course, these were rather bad for Holi. When people were using some of these poisonous materials were being used, and then people started saying. Kale referred to pigments being used extensively, and I only made a reference to transparent iron oxide. Where is this transparent iron oxide in India? There is one country in the world which has a mine which has a micaceous iron oxide, and there is a company which synthetically manufactures micaceous iron oxide in UK. Imagine how you are able to convert that blessed item called ferrous sulfate into micaceous. This is a layered structure. Again, exemplifying the prowess of knowledge engineering. Then in the manufacturing process, nowadays regulations are so stiff. I'm talking about, other day I was reading a paper that people are trying to replace Lindlar catalyst because it's palladium and lead, they don't want lead. Similarly in water gas shift reaction, chromium, they don't want chromium, they want replacement for chromium. So this has become yet another demand that people don't want lead, chromium anywhere around. But it's difficult to. There is no problem when you go for iron, chrome, steels, none at all, because it cannot leach out. They are distinct from something where it can leach out. So this attempt to carry out a write-up of diverse elements, inorganic to organic, is quite a span. And the breakthroughs that came, and I salute erstwhile SIBA, that how they came out with very novel ketoparol and all. There was a completely new structure. Phthalocyanine was known long before, but ketoparol and pidicridone, and they came later. One has to look into, with all the expertise that we have in India, how come we are not come out with a new pigment, or for that matter, new dye? I used to always tell our friends in ICT and dyes, how come we have not come out with solar dye or totally new? Just missed the boat on reactive dyes. I mean, miss is miss, It's one thing to say that I had nearly reached. I remember giving a seminar once in Buffalo, and there was a well-known professor of chemical engineering who had a habit of always putting the speaker to some kind of discomfort. Some topic I was talking about, my interest in the nano part, which was not known by that, particle smaller than diffusion film thickness. And he said, he thought of it. I said, I have not only thought of it, I have done it. So that kind of repartee, it's one thing to say that we had nearly reached that. It's like, remember LED, remember we had nearly reached that goal. But both Chandrasekhar and our great triple helix people missed the Nobel Prize. So it's one thing to be just near that, and another thing is to have accomplished that. I urge our colleagues, people in industry, at least those who make good money, can afford to invest some money in coming out with something novel. The tragedy is as the company becomes bigger and bigger, the innovative spirit keeps on going down rather than going up. You can see global scene. The technocrat-driven companies, after they somehow cross a turnover of 1,000, but definitely 2,000 crores, the spirit of innovation takes a back seat and finance people come on the top. So, this is something which we need to guard against, because all said and done, you are going to get supremacy by coming out with some product. Fortunately, like in pharma industry in India, patents are being honored. One Indian company is not willing to follow a process of another Indian company which is patented. So, although not as functional as elsewhere in the world, but the patenting has created some kind of culture in India. But this is the one big problem the industry faces, that I put in all the effort and overnight it is taken over by some competitor who claims that I have also innovated, but everybody knows that it was unpitched horizontal transfer of technology. That is the biggest danger for innovation in India. And how to protect from that, how to follow the moral path is a completely different topic, and sociologists should analyze that. I am very happy that this auditorium is witnessing launch of many books, and just see even Venkatraman is holding book in his hand. Never forget that in the traditions count, and that you continue to perform in the forthcoming 90th year of an institute is a tribute to the genius of series of people who have worked so hard. And as Professor Pandit said, that I have always championed and kept on saying that all academics should be known by these four attributes. And I'm so happy to say that large number of faculty members in ICT have really complied with this requirement of features of a good academic. Well, we must all congratulate, and I would go to the extent of saying Tipanna Mariyappa can be self-congratulatory. We congratulate you, but you can also be self-congratulatory. Book writing is and I think his wife must have gone through the turmoil of, I used to find this a good excuse with my wife. With Swami, we are discussing the book. That was a good enough excuse to be let off. Thank you for having me here. I'm so happy to launch this book and wish them all the success. And come out with add-on, because I mentioned to him that you must have a decent coverage on treatment of affluents coming from these plants. Converting, like classic example of ferrous sulfate going to value-added product, or ferrous chloride going to value-added product. And I think even now the product based on titanium, I happened to mention to him how the acid-base process for titanium dioxide is still crucial for the titanium dioxide that goes in polyester, because the grade which goes into polyester is not matched by the TIC of flow route. So there is a lot of scope for doing something very novel. But making many of these pigments in the nanoscience, only some expertise in crystallization that is required when you crystallize. In calcium carbonate it is like that. It looks deceptively simple, but it's not all that simple. I can tell you, just making calcium carbonate nanosize of the required crystallinity, whether it's calcite or whether it's vaterite or argonite, it is not simple. It superficially looks simple. And that is the challenge to people who work in this area. And I wish you every success. Carry on this tradition and bring glory to your alma mater. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I think we should have an SOP at every function that Professor Sharma speaks, that we should have a minute of, just rest after he finishes speaking, just so that we can absorb, assimilate, and marvel at what perspectives he has to offer. Even for all of us who believe and think sometimes falsely that we have seen it all and we know it all, here he comes up with something completely, new perspectives, new food for thought, and that is why he is who he is. So thank you so much, sir. And as he rightly said, the hero of the day, reticent as ever, but also a proud moment. And as Professor Sharma said, he could indulge in a bit of self-congratulation today. But before I invite him to speak and share a few words, I go back to the starting part of Professor Sharma's narrative, where he alluded to the cost of the book in the context of what Professor Venkatraman had published. So just this morning we are having an interesting discussion with a few friends, and we are talking about the price of the book, which is healthily priced, to put it mildly, and the gentleman started doing a division on, okay, so many rupees divided by the number of pages. Okay, and I respectfully interrupted him and I said, if you really are interested in doing a bit of maths, try and divide it by the number of years that he has spent in terms of assimilating or accumulating his knowledge, or better still, try and divide it by the number of books of this kind that are available in the industry globally today, never mind in India. and the number might be a little more accurate and a little more insightful. So hopefully, not only can we benefit from the knowledge on offer in his book, but hopefully it can also inspire a few more of us to share our knowledge and translate it into value for the industry. Because finally, as we know, the value really becomes unlocked only when it is shared with the industry. And we have people like Dr. Tipanna continue to be willing and able to do this. So Doctor, I won't stand before you in your moment of glory. Please step up and share your words with the audience. I also take this opportunity to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Tipanna's family. On behalf of all of us, I'm sure he will also do it, but on behalf of all of us, we acknowledge their presence and acknowledge their contribution to his efforts.
Good morning. Good morning to everyone. Vibhushan Professor M.M. Sharma, Professor A.B. Pandit, Vice Chancellor ICT, Shri N.K. Parekh ji, Vice Chairman Piddilite Industries, Shri Anjani Prasad ji, Managing Director Archroma India Private Limited, my guru Professor D. Kale, Professor Parekh, the Vice President UDCT Alumni Association, and Janak Bhai, the Dye Manufacturing Association President. My professors, Professor J.B. Joshi is here, and Professor Malse is here, Professor Thorat, Professor Bhagwat, and many other university professors. People from the industry, Dr. Kishore Shah is there, Bharat Tavre is there, Priya Madam is there, and Vinod Mehra is there, J.P. Singh is there, and my industry friends, professional from my fraternity, my students, my friends, my senior, my juniors, and ladies and gentlemen. Today I am overwhelmed with your love and affection. I am very grateful to you all for coming all the way and gracing this occasion. Thank you very much. Now, before I talk about my book, first let me express my gratitude towards you all, starting with Professor M.M. Sharma. Thank you, Professor M.M. Sharma, for coming all the way and taking trouble to write forward for my book and honoring me for your accepting my invitation and coming all the way. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I would like to thank Professor A.B. Pandit for sparing his valuable time and coming all the way and giving his valuable time here and saying something about my book. Thank you very much, sir. I would like to thank Shri N.K. Parekh ji once again for writing forward for my book and also accepting my invitation for this occasion and gracing this occasion by his presence. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I would like to thank Shri Anjani Prasad ji for accepting my invitation and as a guest of honor and talking good about my book as well as me, and he is also given some suggestion which I will incorporate in my next edition. I will take your session and I will definitely put into my next edition. Thank you, sir, for your presence. I would like to take this opportunity to thank my Professor D.D. Kale for all his support throughout my life, throughout my career, and he has helped me each and every stage of my career, and I am very thankful to him. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I would like to thank Professor Gokte for his presence here as a Vice President of UDCT Alumni Association, and also for helping me to organize this event. His contribution was very huge and I thank him for his contribution. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I would like to thank Janak Mehtaji for coming and gracing these occasions. I would like to thank Dr. Kishore Rati for reviewing my book and writing some reviewed article for reviewed points for my book. Thank you very much, sir. I would like to thank all professors from Mumbai College and UDCT, especially Professor D.D. Kale, Professor A.V. Pradhan, Professor M.A. Sonai, Dr. Srikant Patil, Dr. Sudhir Deshpande. Dr. Sudhir Deshpande and Dr. Srikant Patil is here with us, and I also thank to my Mumbai College professor. I would like to thank my primary school teachers and secondary school teacher, especially the Gupta sir and Singh sir. Singh sir is here in presence in this occasion. I am very thankful for his support and his encouragement for higher education. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank all my friends who helped me throughout my life, all friends, whether from Mariappa College and UDCD or my industry friends, my professional friends, all friends who supported me, I'm very thankful to them. Some friends from Mariappa College also here, like Jitu Patil is here, and Nancy, Preeti, they are here for blessing me. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank my family friend, Mr. and Mrs. Praful Bhatt. They supported me throughout my earlier days. I think they are here. Thank you, auntie. Thank you, uncle, for your support. I would like to thank Color Publication staff for their support, especially the Rajesh Lavde. He has taken extra effort for about writing for this publishing this book. Thank you very much. How can I forget my wife? Sir rightly said, I have given a lot of trouble during this pandemic while writing this book. Thank you, Suvarna, for your all support throughout my life. I am very thankful to you. Thank you very much. Last but not least, thank you all for coming all the way and gracing this occasion and blessing me, giving your best wishes. Thank you very much. Now, coming to the book, let me tell you how the writing of this started. As Professor Didikali said, and even NG Parekh ji said that my first job was in Aeron Universal Limited, a fluorescent pigment manufacturing company, Bangalore, where I was heading R&D and where I encountered different kinds of bright colors pigment. That's the first experience of pigments in my life. Before that, I handled some pigments in Asian paint, in the paint formulation. And after that, in the later stage, I developed myself pearlescent pigment and implemented commercially in my own company called Macrotech Polychem Private Limited. In later days, I was a consultant to many pigment industries where I was helping to improve the quality of the pigment as well as application development for various pigments. Those who are in the pigment, they knows exactly making a pigment. There are two steps. One is making crude, and from crude to make pigment. Crude, there are two different steps, but to convert pigment to crude pigment to pigment is very challenging one. And polymeric dispersion plays vital role. And I have extensively worked on polymeric dispersion. And I have developed some of them and I evaluated them in the various pigment and various applications. All this information gave me insight of the pigments. And that is how the interest in the pigment is started. During these days, I realized that there are a number of books which deals with the chemistry of the pigments and some applications. Very little is available on the specialty pigments like fluorescent pigment, pearlescent pigment. And for a given pigment, the detailed information like CI number, structure, raw materials, and chemistry, manufacturing process, properties, application, these are not there in a single place. I thought, let's put all this information in a single place. And meanwhile, Dilip has supported me and he said that he agreed for the publishing this book. And then this is how the writing of the book started. And the first work started before the pandemic. While writing this book, I have kept in mind that what exactly a pigment manufacturer want to know. End users, what exactly they are looking for. And what information a student should know. And what information the researchers should have. So keeping all this in mind, I classified all these pigments in two different categories. One is organic, another is inorganic. Inorganic pigment further I classified in white pigments and colored pigments. White pigment further classified based on the different metals, and inorganic colored pigment also further classified based on the metals. In case of organic pigments, I classified all pigment based on the colors like red, yellow, orange, blue, green, etc. And each color I further classified based on the chemistries. Now, for example, the red pigments are classified based on the chemistry wise: naphthol red, beta-naphthol red, benzodiazole red, quinacridone red, and so and so. And in each chemistry, there are number of pigments and they differ in their tones as well as the performance. So, therefore, in each pigment, I try to cover the CI number, the structure, the chemistry, the manufacturing process in brief, the properties and applications. In one of the chapter, I discussed about the specialty pigments like fluorescent pigment, pearlescent pigment, thermochromic pigment, photochromic pigment, and metal-based pigments. And I also covered the pigment dispersion in details for the water-based pigment emulsion as well as solvent-based pigment emulsion, master batch, NC chips, and also discussed about the nano pigment dispersion as well as the pigment for the digital printing ink. I also highlighted the pigment manufacturing process, all unit operations involved in it, and also the equipment required to manufacture pigments also I have covered in that. I also discussed about the safety, health and environmental aspect of the pigment manufacturing process. In one of the chapter, I have extensively discussed the extenders which are commercially important. As rightly said N.K. Parekh, that mostly I covered all the pigments, but mostly I given emphasis to the commercially important pigments. In last chapter, I discussed about the selection criteria of pigments. Now for a particular application, which pigments you select, because there are a number of pigments are there. In red colors also there are 100 pigments are there. In out of these 100 red pigments, which pigment is suitable for your application? That criteria I discussed in the last chapter. And so I try to cover all aspects of the pigments, so it should be beneficial to all industries, plastic, paints, ink, textile, paper, ceramics, cosmetic, pharmaceuticals, food. In all industry, I have tried to discuss the selection criteria and pigment importance. It will be helpful to pigment manufacturer, it will be helpful to end users, it will be helpful to students, and it will also be helpful to the scientists. I hope this book will be withstand as per your expectation, and I think you will read this book and you will appreciate my work. And I'll also once again thank the UDCT as well as UA for supporting this and giving this venue for my event. Also for the UDCT and UA staffs for supporting this. And thank you very much for your blessing and your best wishes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you Dr. Tipanna. Thank you dignitaries on the dais, and that brings us to the end of this formal part of the function. I'm sure we can all spend a little bit of time, extended time over networking, and we all, on behalf of everyone, I take this opportunity and liberty of wishing Dr. Tipanna the very best in his future endeavors as well. Thank you everyone.
Thank you.